Well, good afternoon. This is Houndog Steve wishing you a very pleasant afternoon, and thank you for joining me here on this actually very mild after a crazy week. It's 11 degrees today. The sun came out for a little while. It was quite a joy to see because the last Saturday, Friday night going into Saturday, we got hit with 30 hours of freezing rain in southern Ontario, and basically just about everywhere you can think about has declared a state of emergency. Hydro has been down, telephone service has been out, trees all over the road. I'm going to show you some footage in a minute which I think will give you an idea of what it was like. And but you know, when the lights go off, it really makes you think about the whole idea of being prepared for 72 hours without any kind of support whatsoever, because right where we are, not only did the hydro go out and the phone services go out, but because it was freezing rain and we live on on the top of a hill, which we have to go through a valley to get out the other side to hit the main road, it was just a sheet of ice, and it was there was just no way that you were going to get a car down there, or even walking without spikes on your feet to give you some grip. But yes, it really makes you think about all those things that you know, preppers are always telling you to spend a minute and make a list of all the things that you would really, you know, that you should have just in case the lights go off for over 72 hours. So our hydro has been off, as I say, since last Saturday night, early Sunday morning. It went out, and you can probably hear in the background the generator is running. And this, if you live out in this part of rural Ontario, you really do have to have a generator and some gas set aside, because this happens more often than you might think, and not for this long. We were told the hydro is going to come back on next Saturday at 9 p.m, which will mean 7 whole days without hydro if we didn't have the generator. And so having that set aside is very, very important. It can keep your freezer going. It's not a huge generator, but like I say, it's enough to keep the lights on. It's enough to charge telephones, that kind of stuff, flashlight batteries if you are on rechargeable batteries. So yes, very, very handy to have a source of hydro. Even a couple of solar panels would have been better than nothing. You know, at least you can charge your devices. But as I say, we had no phone service, so we were literally on our own, and had there been a serious accident, we would have probably been in quite a lot of trouble. The other, of course, big thing that we noticed, of course, the first day, I must say this, my generator was tucked away in the back of a shed, and we weren't really certain the first day how long the hydro was going to be out, how bad it was, because like I say, we're pretty isolated here. And so we had to do, we just didn't get the generator out, so we had no water. And let me tell you, that's the first thing that you really miss, is water. No way to flush the toilet. You know, you had that last flush, and so what do you do if you don't have a latrine? In a plastic bucket with a toilet seat, you can buy these at a camping store. Very handy to have around, as the plastic bag fits in that bucket so that you can dispose of things quite easily. But yeah, being able to take care of yourself, clean yourself, brushing teeth, personal hygiene, all of these things become a major chore. Now luckily, as most of you know, I have a wood cook stove in the bunkie here, and that has also been incredibly handy, not just to keep the place warm, but it has an oven on the side and hot plates on the top, so I've been able to cook up some food, and it hasn't been too much of an issue. Heating water, there is always usually a pot of stove on there, heating up some water to do dishes, or let's say to wash up or wash your hair, what have you. One thing that you realize immediately is how time consuming everything is without all of these modern appliances that we have. And people talk about going off grid, and that's a nice idea, but when you're actually living it, like I say, we forget how much we take for granted all of these services that are around us and are easily accessible. Banking was down. if you didn't have any cash to be able to go into a store. The stores up here were only accepting cash in exchange for goods and services and materials and so on and so forth. Little issues like that. All the restaurants were closed. There was nowhere to go out for eat if you didn't have enough food at home. And of course, thinking of having a little supply of non-perishable goods, dry goods like rice, split peas, beans, that kind of stuff, canned goods, things that won't go bad, things that you don't need to refrigerate either, because of course the fridges went down. And as I say, luckily that day that we didn't do anything because we thought the hydro might be coming back on, everything stayed frozen and cool in the fridge until we got the generator online. But what do you eat first? You have to clean that out. You cannot let that sit there and rot, and you've probably only got 48 hours before that fridge has lost all of its temperature. And now all of a sudden you're going to eat it all at once. Can you turn it into something else like a soup or a stew? And what are you going to cook it on? Okay, I mean, like I say, we were lucky that both of the houses on this property, well, the rental and the other place, both have wood cook stoves, and we had wood to be able to fuel it. So yeah, we were able to cook stuff up in warm water. We really haven't had to go without too many basic creature comforts, so that's been a blessing. But certainly this is a moment when you should sit back and reflect, and make sure, pull the breaker, turn off your main breaker in your house at 8 o'clock in the evening, and sit there in your armchair or at the kitchen table, wherever it is, and all of a sudden you start thinking what you got to do now. The lights are out, it's dark, where's the flashlight, is the batteries charged, all those little things. Now I think the Government of Canada does have a website for 72-hour preparedness and the absolute basic minimum that you should have on hand, and I'm going to link that below. But let's just flip over to these scenes. One was taken by a real estate agent, and I took a couple myself, and it just gives you an idea of the sort of devastation that we've been looking at for the last 7 days. And this is just ice. That rain that came down, it was like silent. It was just a pitter-patter. You wouldn't think that it would hurt a fly. Okay, here we go. So this will give you a bit of an idea of what we went through. This is the day after the storm, after we got 30 hours of freezing rain, and you can see the damage that was done. I mean, it's just absolutely unbelievable when you drove around and took a look at this. Now, this video is not by me, it's by a local real estate agent, but just about every single road looked very similar to this, and it just shows you how compromising a little thing like freezing rain. And here's some of the guys doing some cleanup. Unbelievable volunteers going around. These are all local people, basically getting things back online again. Now, this is where I live. This is a branch right down over the wires, which explains why we don't have any hydro. That'll have to be done before we can get any hydro back on, and more snow coming again. Now you can see the hydro wires are down here. This is on the main road, and then you drive into an area which just looks like a hurricane or a tornado has gone through. But yes, it's an unbelievable job that the crews did to get out on the road so quickly and get a lot of this pushed back out of the way so you can at least drive around and get to and forth. Although, as I say, there was no hydro in the stores, none of the banks worked, none of the gas stations worked. Yes, it really makes you realize what it's like when the power goes out and how fragile our system is. Yes, I've been in Canada 45 years, and I've wondered many, many times why, when they need to replace a line, rather than put it up on poles, we don't bury it in some kind of a culvert or concrete pipe to protect us from all of this kind of stuff, considering we are so dependent on a continuous hydro supply for just about all of our needs. And as we speak, there are still many people living in apartments, shivering. It's going down to -10 tonight. and you know, here we are on the 7th of April. I wouldn't say this is unheard of weather for April, but it is pretty darn chilly all the same if you don't have heat. And I think given the turn of weather events that we've had recently where we've gone to extremes, I don't think we're going to see the last of this kind of weather, whether it be heavy rain, heavy snow, or freezing rain, that mix. And this covered a huge area. There was warnings down as far south as Michigan, you know, which is over, what, 200-300 miles away from where we are up in south central Ontario here. And yes, as you can see as we drive around. So it's not just that we're getting weather, we are getting extreme weather, and as I say, as these things continue to you know, come upon us, well, once in 100-year storms now are becoming once in 10 or 15-year storms. So we had better start thinking down the track here as to how we're going to deal with our infrastructure and how that is going to support us, you know, in times of need. And I don't see any kind of really planning by the government. They put out a 72-hour plan for the public, but you know, other than the Hydro coming out and doing cleanup and road crews and so on and so forth, I don't see any plan at all. There you go, freezing rain last night, pouring rain today, going for a high of 11 degrees, and look at that water go down the driveway. What an unbelievable run of weather we've had. It is April 2nd. As you can see, the generator is still running. We've been out of hydro since last Sunday. It's Thursday today, and it's probably not going to come back on until Saturday. And this, my friends, is why we prepare, especially out here in the country, because you never quite know what is going to happen. Good day to stay indoors. Okay, so this is our neighbour's property, and you can see the aftermath of the storm. These trees bent over double, plenty of them broken off, some of them completely down on the ground. And that is just from the weight of freezing rain, frozen water. Yeah, lots of damage. Just snapped off or bent over. And now, of course, it's beautiful and warm. We've got some high winds coming in, which brings on another risk, and that is for any branches that are just hanging, could end up going down in this wind. And everywhere you look, this water is running off down into the river. Gallons and gallons and gallons. So as you can see, quite a mess, and you know, whilst that was playing, I was just thinking, you know, I wonder what all of these people in Teslas are now thinking, these battery-driven cars that weren't able to be charged unless you had a generator and unless you had gas. and the gas stations were closed because they run on electric pumps. So what would happen if your whole life was based on a central bank digital currency? I think this is a bit of a shockwave. None of the internet was working. I had internet because I have a Starlink hookup, but if you were on ExploreNet or working on the Bell lines, you didn't have internet, and so there was no way to get gasoline. So you can imagine if you had no cash and you were completely tied to a central bank digital currency, you would be screwed, royally screwed. You'd be in so much trouble because there would even be not even a way to, unless you gave a promissory note. And actually that's what used to happen in the old days. It was called the farmer's check. And one farmer would write out a check to pay for, 200 bales of hay, $200. He'd hand it over. That farmer would then buy some fence posts with it and sign it over to the next person, and the last person would get a check with all signatures on the back of the check, and he's the one with the shaky hand who's got to take it over to the bank and hope that the damn thing cashes for $200. But it's an interesting example of how you can create money and circulate that. I mean, if that check was of an unlimited size and you could put as many signatures on the back as you wanted to, that $200 could pay for just about everything you need in your community locally. And you just keep circulating, you keep signing it over to the next person, and it acts as cash for that person whilst they have it. And there you go. Now, of course, you've got to spend the whole $200 in one shot, but if you can use your imagination, there are other ways to get around some of these things. But I don't think we are culturally ready to go back to that. I mean, we're talking over 50 years ago. Certainly, when I got to Bobcaygeon 30 years ago, 35 years ago, they were still farmers who would do that, but it was dying out even then. So we have culturally lost even being able to hold that idea in our heads because we're so used to credit, automatic payment, and I mean, you really don't see checks anymore. I used to use checks to slow down the payment from going through, because I knew it would take 3 days to process a check from the time that the bank received that payment. And so it gave you like an extra 3 days leeway before it came out of your account. But now, no, we're living in the world of instantaneous. And people are used to that. Amazon.com, all of this kind of stuff. Anyway, it was a wake-up call, and I'm glad that we found out that we are as prepared as we are. Certainly, an item to get would be a hand pump for the well. Water was the biggie. Let's say, we thought there was a possibility, if this did happen, that we'd be able to melt snow or ice or something like that to get the water that we needed. But it was all rock hard. You couldn't get at it. The snow had basically nearly all melted anyways, and then it all came back again with this ice storm. And so yes, the things that you think that you're going to be able to do might not be so viable when you actually have that real world experience. So anyway, I will link the emergency website from Environment Canada below in the description. And yes, let this be a wake-up call to anyone who's listening to me in Southern Ontario. I'm sure you've already had this discussion, just in case it happens again, because these things can come out of nowhere. Okie dokie. Well, if you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe below. And in the meantime, this is Houndog Steve signing off, wishing you a very pleasant afternoon, and we'll talk very, very shortly. See you now. Bye.